So now that we've chosen our character and made our expressions to translate into 3D, in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to use a character rig. So a character rig is going to come out like this. It's going to be in T-pose or it's going to be in A-pose, which is like this. So what a character rig is doing, essentially, is that it has little skeletons inside and you can move the controls just to pose it out like this thing over here. We can do anything we really want. So we can move the head, we can move the chest, we can move the legs, but we're going to be focusing on the face. Character rig does have a lot of controls, but we don't have to use all of these controls, and we can kind of simplify what we need. So a couple things you need to be aware of before you start animating is you want your head to be in master space or world space and not local space or any of these other spaces. What you want it to behave like is you want to be able to move the chest and the head to stay oriented forward. Don't want it to feel like this. It's really hard to animate like this because you're gonna have to counter animate your head every single time, and that's not what you want to do. So making sure this is in a master space. For your arms, you want to also make sure they're in master space and not chest space. You don't want to feel like the arms are going along, because what happens when we actually move our chest is that our arms aren't really doing that unless we try to make it do that. If you put your arms next to your chest or just relax your arms and move, you can feel that your arms are actually offset from your chest. So we want to mimic that in the rig. So making sure that's in master. The rest you don't really need to worry about for an expression test. I'm going to quickly go through the parts of the face that we're going to use. So we're definitely going to use the head. We're going to rotate it around. We're going to use the brows. So this is the big rectangle is the main brow control. We can move it up and down. The second to the inner brows are controlling the emotion. This is like an emotion control. This is more angry. This is more neutral. And these ones over here are shaper controls. They're just for support, really. A lot of rigs won't have both of these, but this one does, just for some support. These are blink controls to open the eyelids up and down. These little ones over here, the little yellow circles, are shaper controls to help just get a good shape on the eye and having it feel really appealing and deliberate. And this is the lower lid control. We're going to be using this a lot for blinks. Same over here. We're going to use these cheek controls to go up and down and kind of compress and stretch. And we have also these controls to shape the outer meat of the eyelid as well. We have this control where we can move the actual iris. I also have these controls where we can do that together. We also want to make sure this control is following the head. That's just how I like to work and not the master. So if we follow the master, that means it's going to stay in place while the head is moving around, which can be really distracting when you're animating. So I would just make it follow the head for now. Don't have to, it's up to you. Both of them kind of require a lot of counter animating, so it doesn't really matter. Also, we're going to be using the neck to pose things out. This is an FK neck control. FK means forward kinematics, which means that there's a joint and another joint that we can use to rotate. The neck IK control, which means inverse kinematics, means that you can translate it around and kind of shape the neck however you want. We're going to be using the nose. This is an overall nose control. These are the nostril controls. This is a control just for the ring. These big controls over here are bigger head shaper controls. You can kind of squash and stretch them. You can also squash and stretch the whole head. You don't want to do it too much sometimes because it'll mess up the way your eye looks. I like to use the lower controls more to get a line of action through the body and the head. This is an overall mouth control. You can use it to shift the mouth around freely. You can even stretch it out however far you want. These are mouth corner controls, super important for emoting. You can also move them around freely. These are very important to get appeal. And these are shaper controls where you can shape the mouth even more specifically. I use them a lot, especially for this character. I like using this shape for this character and kind of getting a more specific smile. Honestly, this is kind of eye smile. Whenever you kind of animate, your own mannerisms come through, whether you like it or not. So we're getting a nice smile. We're going to be using these controls a lot for kind of shaping these emotions. There is the upper lip control and the lower lip control. You can rotate and translate these. These are overall eye controls also. You move the eye. You want to be careful with those because it can go off model really quickly. We can open the jaw. You can translate the jaw. You can rotate it this way and this way. It's definitely better to rotate the jaw instead of translate the jaw. These are shaper controls for the chin and the jawline. We use them a lot for just shaping and appeal. These are cheek controls to puff the cheeks out and in. Don't use them a whole lot, but we can. These are teeth controls. We can move them around, we can rotate them. And you wouldn't expect us to be able to want to even do this, but it really does help a lot when we're getting appeal down. Like even if I just rotate it back this way, it's already more appealing than default because we have a flat line as opposed to a curved line. And we also have tongue controls in the middle. There's 4 of them, but we only really need a few. We can make selection sets for these also, so we don't have to keep like opening them out and selecting the controls. That's a rundown of this rig. There's also like ear controls that we're probably not going to use. Hair controls that we're not going to use for this. We are going to use some of the neck tension. Not a lot of rigs have this, but it's very useful to have like this kind of tension in the neck when we're going in and out of emotions. just to show some variety and to show there's some effort going on. The more of this there is when it gets more believable, I'd say.
In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to block out our animation into key storytelling poses.